Welcome back to your weekly dose of Monday morning inspiration to help you take back control of your health and transform your mind, body, and gut. I'm your host, Eli Brecher, a registered nutritionist, and we have such a fascinating topic for today's episode. So grab your matcha or throw your trainers on and head outside for your daily walk whilst you listen and learn. Our incredible guest today is Dr. Kela Smith, a holistic doctor, researcher and educator, and the founder of the Hormone Puzzle Society, a virtual clinic and educational platform supporting individuals and couples on their fertility and hormone health journeys. Dr. Kela is the host of the Hormone Puzzle podcast, which I was recently a guest on, talking all about the gut hormone connection. So definitely check that out. So welcome, Dr. Kela, to the Gut 360 podcast.
Thanks, Ellie. I'm excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you. Now, you often say that fertility is a whole body puzzle, not just a reproductive issue, which I totally agree with. Can you explain what that means and why so many people stay stuck when they focus on only hormones or reproductive organs?
Sure. So fertility and fertility optimization, this is a symptom of our whole body system, and it's multiple systems working together. So instead of just trying to focus on one piece, that's why I call it a puzzle. I want you to focus on the whole thing. So things like blood sugar, thyroid, adrenals, the gut, the immune system, the detox pathways, the inflammation levels, the nervous system, all of it ties into you being able to get and stay pregnant and you having optimized fertility. And you can force ovulation, but if you don't figure out why it's not happening in the first place, the likelihood of you being able to get pregnant with forced ovulation is pretty slim. If your mitochondria don't have enough ATP energy to make cellular health and, rejuvenate the cells, then it's going to be hard to get pregnant. And so that's why I call it, it's a whole body puzzle. It's not just one piece. And we have to make sure that all the systems are working together and in synergy.
I couldn't agree more. I tell all my clients we need to take a 360-degree approach to our gut health, our hormone health, and of course, the same applies to fertility. And speaking of gut health plays a really key role in fertility, as you know, but it's so often overlooked. So how does the gut influence our hormones, inflammation, immune signaling in people who are trying to conceive?
Yeah, the gut is the root of all health issues. It's how we digest and absorb our nutrients. 80% of our immune system is housed in our gut. And if there's issues such as inflammation or a leaky gut or any of those, gut dysbiosis, any of those things are going to cause issues with fertility. Some of the other things that happens in the gut, we metabolize our hormones, especially our estrogen. So if our estrogen isn't being metabolized appropriately, it's going to recirculate into our blood, especially if we have leaky gut, and cause inflammation. Inflammation in the gut itself can lead to systemic inflammation throughout the entire body. Again, when we have the inflammation in the gut, it can cause a leaky gut and then cause systemic inflammation. Like I said earlier, 80% of the immune system is housed in the gut. And if the gut is inflamed and dysbiosed, then that's going to target and turn on our immune signaling, causing issues with getting pregnant and staying pregnant and overall health. So an inflamed gut it means it's on high alert and it's going to cause all of those issues with fertility and overall health.
That makes total sense. And can you explain for those people who might not know, what does dysbiosis mean? And if we have dysbiosis in our gut, how can that actually impact ovulation, implantation, cycle regularity, even if our labs appear normal?
Yeah, so dysbiosis means having more unhealthy and opportunistic bacteria in the gut than healthy bacteria. So when the gut is overrun with opportunistic bacteria or the bad bacteria, as we say, then it's going to cause the gut to be inflamed and it's going to cause all the issues that we just talked about. It can impair our ovulation. And taking it a step back too, before I say all of that, when our gut's inflamed and we have dysbiosis, we're not absorbing our nutrients from our food. And so our food, that's the building blocks to everything in the body, from our vitamins and minerals to our hormones to our immune system, everything. So when the gut's inflamed, it's going to impact how we absorb our foods, which is going to impact how we ovulate, how much energy we have to do that process in the body, how our thyroid works, how our metabolic health works, how our even our brain function works. Everything is going to be compromised because we have dysbiosis in the gut and the gut is inflamed.
Yeah, 100%. And it's really important that people realize that the place in our body where we do absorb those nutrients from our food is our gut. So we can take all the time to carefully meal prep. We can spend all our money on expensive organic produce. But if our gut is in an inflamed state, we're not going to be absorbing those nutrients. I know from my own health journey, I have Crohn's. And in the past, when I've been in a flare up, when my gut health hasn't been good, no matter how good my diet is, I'm not absorbing those nutrients, and it will lead to, feelings of fatigue and lack of energy. So it's super important to make sure that our gut health is as healthy as it can be. Now, a lot of people think that fertility support only starts when they're ready to conceive. But from your perspective, how early should someone actually start thinking about optimizing their gut and hormone health before trying for a baby?
Yeah, I love this question. So many times I talk about fertility is a symptom of your overall health, and having optimized fertility and your ability to get pregnant, that means the entire system is healthy and optimized. And so I recommend you start as early as you want to have a baby next month, or get pregnant next month, or you want to get pregnant in 5 years. I would start prepping your body for preconception. And again, it's overall health that we're working towards, which is going to in turn optimize our fertility. So I would say as soon as you know that you want to get pregnant, I would start. And now saying that, somebody's listening to that and they're like, well, what does that actually mean? I would say at least 3 to 6 months before you're ready to start. But today is, the perfect day, whether you want to start in a month or in 5 years.
I always say the best time to start was yesterday. The second best time is today.
Exactly.
And I also think stress and nervous system dysregulation come up a lot in fertility cases. So how would you say the gut and the nervous system interact? And why is this connection so critical for our reproductive health?
Yeah, well, the gut and the nervous system are intertwined by the gut-brain nervous system axis. So if our gut is inflamed, it's going to turn on the branch of our nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight, flight, and freeze. And so whenever we have inflammation in the gut or in the, systemic inflammation throughout the body, it's going to tell the body that it's not safe, and it's going to downregulate anything that is not keeping us alive. So that's things like digesting the sandwich that you just ate, or thinking how you can get around this traffic jam, or making a baby. All of those things are going to be put on pause if the system and the nervous system is that sympathetic system is turned on. And so what we want is to lower inflammation, to heal the nervous system, and really turn that parasympathetic nervous system on. This is your rest, digest, and reproduce system. And so when this is turned on, it means you're calm, your gut is not inflamed, your body's not inflamed. Everything is kind of just humming along and in homeostasis, working the way that it should. And so that's the state that you want to be in for optimal fertility and overall health.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, so many people I meet these days, my clients, friends, family, even myself, we live in a constant state of fight or flight. Anything from getting a stressful work email, our phones ringing, or, being in public transport at rush hour. All these signals are kind of sending our body into this state of stress. So it's super important to optimize our bodies to get into that rest and digest state. Absolutely. So one word I hear all the time is detox. In fact, in the lead up to my wedding recently, so many people were asking me, what are you doing to detox? What's your wedding detox plan looking like? And I don't love this word, but I feel like our bodies have a way of detoxing naturally. And we have these detox pathways that are often misunderstood in fertility care. So what would you say healthy, supportive detox looks like when someone is trying to conceive? And what should we not do? What should be avoided?
Yes, I love the question around detox, because this is a piece that is so misunderstood, especially with all the Instagrams and the, Facebook talking about juice cleanses and fasting for detox and all the things. And what healthy fertility detox should look like is gentle and supportive, not aggressive. And so doing things that we should be doing anyways is going to just support our bodies for healthy detox. So that's daily bowel movements, Detox starts with elimination, so make sure you're going at least once a day. I like a couple, 2 to 3 times even a day. You want a healthy 4 on that scale. I always forget the name of this, the
Bristol stool chart.
Stool chart, yes. So we want about a 4 on that, where it looks kind of like soft serve ice cream. It's not hard to pass. It's pretty smooth. It's not loose. And then liver support is also really important. I like this through nutrition. So doing things like eating fiber-rich foods every day, getting cruciferous vegetables, which is going to be things like broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale. Cruciferous vegetables really help with our estrogen detox. So this is really important. Always make sure you cook these vegetables because they can affect the thyroid if they are raw. So make sure you're cooking those. And then even doing things like chelating herbs, parsley and cilantro, and also things like dandelion root and milk thistle. So supportive foods through the liver. Hydration is another one that gets missed a lot. So making sure that you're drinking enough water, but you're also getting in daily electrolytes. You always want to look at your urine when you go to the bathroom. It needs to be pale yellow. If it's darker than that, you need to add electrolytes. If it's lighter and it's clear, then that means also you need electrolytes and maybe you're overhydrating and you're not absorbing that water. Then I also like to do things to, support digestion, like we talked about earlier with the gut, making sure that you're eating a low inflammatory diet, you're sweating every single day, and even doing things like sauna or steam room, and you're reducing your exposure to plastics and fragrances and, endocrine disrupting, outside things like that. So all of that you should be doing. Maybe not everything. If it sounds overwhelming, pick a couple of things where you can focus first. So that's what you should be doing. What you should not be doing is things like extreme juice cleanses, extreme fasting, or you're fasting for 2 or 3 days, harsh binders, things that are meant to aggressively detox you. Now, there is a time and place for that, but really during the fertility journey, I would stay away from those hardcore detoxes. So those are a few things I would do for detox.
So much food for thought there. You mentioned a low inflammatory diet. So if someone doesn't know what that means, what that looks like, can you just explain to us where they should begin?
Sure. So whole food, balanced nutrition, making sure that you're eating enough. You're getting enough calories. I say 1,800 to 2,500 per day, which I know some people will hear that and think, oh my goodness, that's a lot. But that's actually what you need for fertility and for hormones. So eating enough, making sure every meal has a good balance of protein, fat, fiber, and slow burning carbs. And then staying away from foods that cause inflammation. So this would be things like packaged foods, highly processed foods, hydrogenated oils, fried foods, sugar, alcohol and caffeine. I think you should avoid alcohol, but if you can't, definitely moderation on that one. Caffeine, I'm okay with 1 cup a day, but over caffeinated, we definitely don't want to over caffeinate. Be really mindful of that and balancing that with enough water if you are having some caffeine. But those are probably the main things I would stay away from, and making sure that you're adding those balanced whole foods, like I said earlier.
Amazing. That is so helpful.
We know we should be consuming fermented foods for our gut health, but have you tried kimchi or sauerkraut? This episode is sponsored by The Cultured Collective, whose kimchi and sauerkraut are naturally fermented, unpasteurized, and tested for live cultures, as well as being a source of fiber. They've won awards for their flavor, so I'm not the only one who thinks they taste amazing. It's really easy to add a scoop of these real live foods to all kinds of meals. I love adding kimchi to the side of my eggs and topping avocado toast with sauerkraut. They're offering listeners of the Gut 360 podcast a huge 50% off their kimchi and sauerkraut, so head to the show notes to find out more. This episode is sponsored by IM8. I've recently added IM8 Daily Essentials into my morning routine, and I've noticed a real difference in my energy levels and my sleep. It's clinically proven, with 95% of people reporting more energy, 85% of people reporting better gut health, and 80% of people reporting better sleep quality. I love that it has 92 nutrient-rich ingredients, including gut-friendly probiotics and prebiotics, and I confidently recommend it to my clients. Use the code GUT360 for a special discount and free welcome code on your first order.
So we've talked about nutrition, we've talked about hydration, and a lot of women get told their tests are normal, but they're still struggling with irregular cycles, PMS, unexplained infertility. So aside from maybe nutrition and hydration, in your experience, what are the missing pieces that conventional testing often overlooks?
Yeah, so I would look at further testing. I'm a really big fan of functional lab testing. So blood work is giving us a snapshot in time, and it can sometimes, and even a lot of times, it can miss many things that deeper lab work can uncover. So I love to do things like a Dutch test, which is a dried urine hormone test, looking at not just what your levels are, but how things are being methylated, which means detoxed, and neutralized, how things are detoxing your estrogen, how that's being detoxed. What does your adrenal gland function look like? So that's the Dutch test. I also like doing a microbiome analysis. We're talking about the gut here. And I like looking at the full microbiome and the full environment in the gut, seeing, do you have opportunistic bacteria? Do you have a good amount of short chain fatty acid production? Is your vitamins being synthesized? Do you have a parasite or another opportunistic bacteria causing inflammation? So I like to do that. I also like to look at the vaginal microbiome. Many times we don't have enough of the good vaginal microbiome, which can cause an inflammatory environment in the vaginal and reproductive tracts. So we need to address that if fertility is an issue. And then I'll sometimes do things like hair tissue mineral analysis, looking at our minerals. You said something earlier that I thought was really important to address, but if we're eating a super clean diet and we're very healthy, but we have a lot of symptoms, then maybe we're not absorbing and maybe our minerals are low. So we need to look at that as well. So that's just some of the things that I'll look at. And then I also like to look at, do we have inflammatory markers in blood? Is there inflammatory cytokines that are interfering with ovulation and progesterone signaling? Do we have insulin resistant or blood sugar imbalance? This is another big one where it's kind of rooted in the gut and it can drive metabolic dysfunction. Do we have like we said earlier, nutrient malabsorption, mineral malabsorption, looking at things like zinc and iron and B vitamins and magnesium? All of those things are going to be found on more functional lab testing versus traditional labs. Even when traditional labs say normal, I find a lot of things within those tests.
So many important things to think about. Now, one thing we haven't yet discussed is supplements. Supplements are everywhere in the fertility space in particular, and they can be expensive. So if someone could only focus on a few foundational supplements, what would you prioritize before adding in anything more complex? And of course, it goes without saying, everyone is individual when it comes to supplements, but what are some general ones that you very often would recommend?
Sure. So before any supplements, I really want you to focus on those foundational pieces. I always tell people that first. You cannot out supplement a bad diet or a bad sleep, regimen. So make sure you get those in place first. But then once those are in place, there's a few supplements that I think everybody would benefit from. And so the first one is just a clean prenatal or multivitamin, depending on if you're trying to get pregnant or not. Make sure you go with a reputable brand. I don't recommend getting supplements from things like, third-party retailers like Amazon or even places like the grocery store or the local drugstore. I really recommend you go with a reputable brand. Some of the ones that I like are Needed, WeNatal, Belly. They all have done third-party testing and have really clean ingredient labels. So that's the first thing. Get a really clean prenatal or multi. That's also for your husband or partner. He also needs a prenatal or a multi, so make sure he gets one as well. And then I do like fish oil or omega-3 fatty acids. I feel so many people do not eat enough fish, and we need those fatty acids for hormone production and for inflammation lowering and everything that we've talked about here today. So I would do a really clean omega-3 fatty acid. And then some people do need a probiotic and a prebiotic, but it really depends on the state of their gut. So before you do that, I would actually recommend you get a microbiome analysis to see what your gut terrain looks like and then supplement from there. But if you do end up needing a probiotic and a prebiotic, I do recommend spore-based to make sure that the spores get through the stomach acid and into the gut where they need to go. And then the prebiotic is just the food that feeds the probiotic. And so that's super helpful as well. And then I would also recommend testing for vitamin D. If your vitamin D is low, you definitely need to supplement. I like to see it between like 60 to 90. I know conventional medicine says 30 to 50, but that's honestly too low. So if you have low vitamin D, getting a vitamin D supplement, and then also making sure you're getting adequate sun exposure because that's how we synthesize vitamin D through the skin. So those would probably be the handful that I recommend. And then obviously there's other supplements and there's other ones that are good, but it is really dependent on your specific body and your biochemistry, what else you need.
That's super helpful. I'm dreaming of the sun. It's so cold and dark outside as I look out my window here in the UK right now, but I'm definitely taking my vitamin D supplement every day throughout the autumn and winter. I mean, everyone here in the UK is advised to take 10 micrograms of vitamin D at least between October and March, and potentially even longer than that, depending on our sunshine. I love that you mentioned omega-3 as well. I think that's one that often gets forgotten about. People think about maybe folic acid or folate, prenatals, but omega-3 is super important as well, not just preconception and for fertility, but also for our hormones in general, for our brain health, for our skin. So one to remember. Now, you briefly mentioned the male partner when it comes to supplements, and I think male fertility is finally getting more attention, getting the attention that it deserves. So how does gut health and lifestyle affect fertility from a male point of view?
Yeah, the same as it affects women, it also affects men. And I find this a lot in practice where sometimes we have infertility and the couple are working together and we're doing all this work on her and it ends up being him. When we run a stool test, a microbiome analysis, we see that he has opportunistic bacteria and a inflamed gut and all of the things that we've talked about that are disrupting his fertility. So it's just as important for your male partner or your husband to look at their gut, look at their immune system and their overall health for fertility. So everything that we've mentioned here applies to them as well.
Definitely. That is such an important reminder. Now, your upcoming book, Solving the Infertility Puzzle, brings this framework to a wider audience. So I would love to know what inspired you to write it and who do you hope it reaches most?
Sure. So I really wanted this book because I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there in the fertility world. And I wanted to have a guidebook to not only bring hope to this audience, but also to give them practical pieces on what they could do to proactively work on their fertility and overall health. So I go through all the pieces, the foundational pieces that we talked about here today, but then I also go through the functional lab testing in detail. I talk about blood work as well. What should optimal levels be? Not just normal. What should optimal levels be? I talk about many case studies of very hard cases that I've worked in where those couples and singles have gotten pregnant with healthy babies. And so I hope people listening and reading will see themselves in some of those cases and have the hope that it can happen for them. And then I also go through 175 research studies on everything that I found that proves what I'm talking about in the book and how holistic health can and will help you to optimize your fertility. So it's a great book. It's the best thing I've ever written, and I'm excited for it to come out.
Wow, I am excited to get my hands on it when it's out. It sounds super interesting, and I know it's going to be so helpful to so many people. So huge congratulations on that.
Thank you.
So in your Solving the Infertility Puzzle framework, you've got these 5 core steps. Can you talk us through what they are and how do they work together to create an environment for conception and long-term health?
Sure. So the first piece is belief. You have to believe that you can heal for healing to actually happen. Everything starts in your mental and emotional health and goes down into your physical body. So that's the first piece. Do you believe that you can get pregnant and stay pregnant? So work on your beliefs. Then the second piece is the hormone puzzle. And these are the foundational steps that we've talked about here today. And I'll just briefly mention those again. So it's puzzle is an acronym. So it's P, proper whole food nutrition for preconception. U is understanding supplements. Z is zapping stress. Z or Z is for sleep. L is love and encouragement. And E is exercise and environment. So those are all of the foundational pieces that you should be putting together for your fertility. The third piece is your nervous system. We haven't really touched on this one, but just for a second, this is often a piece that gets missed and is very important. So doing things every single day to nurture your nervous system, turning on that parasympathetic rest, digest, and reproduce. And so how you do this, the very easy and best way is through breathing. We forget how to breathe. Don't want to talk in absolutes, but a lot of us breathe in our chests, especially when we're nervous or anxious. So really stop and think, even like 5 minutes every couple of hours, how am I breathing? We want deep belly breaths into our diaphragm so that we're calming everything down. We're turning on that branch of the nervous system that's going to help us just feel calm and relaxed and rest, digest, and reproduce. And then the fourth step is going to be healing the gut and lowering inflammation throughout the body. We've talked a lot about this here today, but this is a very important piece. Everything starts in the gut. It's where our immune system is. So addressing, do you have gut dysbiosis, inflammation, leaky gut, doing some gut testing, and then saying, okay, well, how do I heal my gut so that I'm absorbing my nutrients and my body has all the raw materials it needs to function? And then the fifth piece is looking at detox pathways and toxic overload, doing those gentle detox pieces that I mentioned earlier, nothing harsh, but then also looking at your toxins and your overall toxic burden. What does your beauty products and your cleaning products look like? Are you cooking in plastics and are you drinking out of plastic water bottles? Do you spray yourself with perfume every single day? Really taking a hard look at your life and saying, what can I eliminate to live a less toxic life? And hey, look, I am an 80-20 kind of girl. I love to get my nails done and do some things that maybe aren't 100% non-tox, but I look at what are my non-negotiables? What are some things that feed my soul? And then what else can I do to live as non-tox as possible? So if you can get to 80%, you're doing great and saving a few of those things for, just to live your life and to have some joy. And then 6, personalized testing and support through working with practitioners like Ellie and myself, and then also getting some testing. I find so many people come to me and say they're struggling with infertility and they only have done blood work and the blood work says normal, but then we run functional labs and there's so many things that we can work on. So before you go and do an expensive procedure, some art treatments, really look and say, have I touched on every piece of my fertility puzzle and identified everything that could be causing this before I go and try to force the body to do something that it should be doing naturally? So get some functional labs and work with a qualified practitioner. So those are my 6 steps to putting together your hormone puzzle.
That really is so comprehensive and totally taking that 360 approach that I preach left, right, and center. So I love that. Thank you for sharing. Before we wrap up, we finish each guest episode with a quick fire round. So are you ready?
Sure.
What is something that seems healthy but often backfires for your health?
Intermittent fasting.
What's one habit you see clients struggle with the most?
Meal prep.
What's your favorite gut-friendly food?
I love kombucha, but you have to be careful. You can't have too much, but just a little bit.
Yeah, I love it too. What's your go-to breakfast on busy days?
Oh my goodness. Well, I love a little coconut yogurt mixed with my prebiotic, a homemade gluten-free muffin with a little bit of cinnamon and honey on top. I just had it like 5 minutes ago and it's so delicious.
That sounds amazing.
Good.
What did you personally get wrong early in your career?
Oh my goodness. Shiny object syndrome, where I wanted to invest in every single program or thing that came my way. And I had to take a step back and say, you know enough, you are enough. Stop investing in $1,000 worth of programs and just share your gifts with the world. So that's what I would say.
I love that. I can totally relate to that. And we'll finish this round with a few fun ones. Coffee or matcha?
Coffee.
Favorite coffee shop?
Local coffee shop. Wow, what is it called? Oh my gosh, Stomping Grounds. Stomping Grounds.
Overnight oats or eggs on toast?
Oh gosh, can I say both?
You can. I would say both. But if you have to pick.
Oh, eggs on toast. Gluten-free toast.
If you could only do one type of exercise for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Lift weights.
And lastly, what is one word you associate with a healthy gut?
Calm.
I love that. Thank you so much, Dr. Kela, for being a guest on the Gut 360 podcast. If someone wants to learn more about what you do, where's the place for the best place for them to go?
Sure. Thank you so much, Ellie. This has been fun. So you can find me at hormonepuzzlesociety.com. You can book a telehealth appointment right from the home screen. And we've got a lot of free giveaways and talks about my book and the masterclass. So definitely check us out there. I'm also on Instagram. My favorite place to hang out is Instagram. And I'm at Kela_health coach. I'm also on TikTok at Dr. Kela Smith. And my podcast, the Hormone Puzzle Podcast, is on every podcast app.
Amazing. We will leave a link for your new book in the show notes below this episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Kela, for your time. And thank you guys for listening to today's episode of the Gut 360 podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you hit follow for weekly episodes every Monday morning. I'd love to hear from you if you have a particular topic you'd like me to cover on the podcast. So come connect with me on Instagram at Eli Brecher Nutrition if you're not already on there. My DMs are always open, so please drop me a message. If you learned something new, take a screenshot, share it on your Instagram story, send this podcast to anyone who you think it may benefit. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week. I'll be back in your ears next Monday.